We have a lot of hard work to do today.
What might that be, Jonathan?
Well, we got a lot of hard work.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder. It's time to look in the mirror, America. Do you like what you see?
I keep referring to Obama as the magic Negro.
Do you like what you see now?
Well, suck on this.
It's just a mirror, America.
Shared sacrifice by everybody.
What could it do to you except reflect your image?
I did nothing wrong at the Minneapolis airport.
The Majority Report.
Far more credible to me than PBS and Frontline.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
If I get the feeling you've been cheated.
It is Tuesday, January 31st, 2017. My name is Sam Seder. This is the four-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Team Spine update, Democrats in the Senate delay the Mnuchin and Tom Price hearings, or I should say votes, maybe forever. Also, it's Tuesday, the day after the Monday night massacre. Trump organization fires the acting attorney general for not following its unconstitutional new rules on immigration. Meanwhile, the Trump organization in disarray decided to send out their new head of ICE and new head of Homeland Security to tell everybody it is not what it appears to be. Also on the program today, we have a new president, Steve Bannon. And the Republicans in a full state of panic about the Affordable Care Act repeal. The laugher of the day, Koch Network, a resistance to Trump? Question mark.
Oh, my God. Is that a serious proposition?
Obama LGBT protections for workers of federal contractors stays for the time being. And Trump's first Yemen raid kills an 8-year-old girl, al-Awlaki's daughter. We've now managed to kill 2 of al-Awlaki's children, both U.S. citizens, among other civilians. And new reports that Federal Reserve bankers were literally laughing at the unemployed people back in 2011. Trump appoints an anti-net neutrality FCC chair. No surprise there. And lastly, the heartwarming story of voter expert Greg Phillips, who will, in the months to come, show us unequivocally how 3 to 4, maybe more, million people voted illegally in the last election. Turns out he's registered in 3 separate states. Whoops. All that and more on today's program, ladies and gentlemen. Another format-busting day of news. Almost impossible to keep up. It is impossible to keep up. Exactly. We're going to start with a couple of, and right now as we speak, the head of ICE and the Department of Homeland Security are I think, engaged in full-on damage control right now to argue that the ban wasn't a ban and all the things that happened weren't supposed to happen, and people are making a whole lot of nothing out of nothing, and et cetera, et cetera. Let's start, though. I want to start with this myth going around perpetrated by Trump supporters in retreat and then other moronic quarters of the interwebs, that this ban was a function of an Obama ban from these 7 countries. First off, what they're referring to are 2016 Department of Homeland Security regulations that became a bill, I guess, or that were interpreted from a bill, the Visa Waiver Program Improvement and Terrorist Travel Protection Act of 2015. That was a separate bill that never made it out of the House, but whose but the elements of which were rolled into an omnibus budget that Obama signed. But putting that aside for a fact that it was a Republican proposed bill in a Republican passed budget bill that Obama could have sank the whole budget bill if he wanted to prevent that one part of it. What that provision was a modification of the VWP provisions that exist. The VWP are the visa waiver provisions, which apply to some 30, maybe 38 countries. I don't know, 34, 38, I can't remember. Mostly European countries and Japan. And it basically says you don't need a visa to come into the United States. You just need to show your passport when you get to customs. The 7 countries that were named in Trump's immigration ban, that is apparently not an immigration ban, according to them. Basically, were exceptions to the Visa Waiver Protection Plan. Or program, I should say. Visa Waiver Program. So in other words, if you came from one of those 34 countries and went directly to the United States, you didn't need a visa. If for some reason you went first to one of these 7 countries and then were headed to the United States, you needed to get a visa. That's it. You're not prevented from entering. You are, I guess, there's an increase in scrutiny insofar as you got to get a visa. I can't remember off the top of my head how many countries that Americans need to get visas for to go to. I know, like, maybe. Yes, in other Asian countries, maybe mainland. I feel like I had to get a visa to go to Thailand, but that was 25, 30 years ago. I don't remember. But yeah, it's an extra burden if you go through those countries. But it's also one that just puts you on the radar if you have been in Iraq or Syria or Iran or Sudan. I guess it's also Yemen or Libya and Somalia. That's it. It just changes the eligibility requirements for people who already are allowed to come into the country without a visa. It just now means you need to get a visa. That was it. Had nothing to do with banning. Had nothing to do with banning refugees. And it is, I mean, I understand why Sean Spicer says this crap, because he's working for a pathological liar and needs to work it out. But if you're not working for a pathological liar and you're promoting this stuff, you're either an idiot or you're also a liar. I mean, that's just the reality of it. So, I don't know, someone had sent me a link to this guy, Seth Franzman. I don't know who it is, but it was really impressive how he, for whatever reason, I don't know why he would have done this. Maybe it was just laziness. Maybe he can't read. But he clipped the part of the legislation that said that isolated those 7 countries without the first clause, which says if you are from a VWP country and travel through these 7 countries, yeah, I don't know who this guy is, but somebody had sent it to me in the emails. And then I heard that other morons are repeating this thing. I can only imagine who those other morons are. Because this would actually involve reading the actual VWP statute, which takes almost like 10 minutes. And that's probably 9 minutes of Googling to find the link. I don't know. That type of crap just pisses me off. But good for the Democrats and good for all the people who went out to the protests and at least have put this on notice. The other thing that makes this unconstitutional, and we'll get to in a second, is, and despite the fact that, I don't know, Sam Harris, speaking of morons, is, and his accolades, or acolytes, I should say, are suggesting this is not a Muslim ban. There's a lot of Muslim countries out there. Michael played Rudy Giuliani's basically TikTok on how this Muslim ban was developed. And what we're seeing is the functional equivalent of that North Carolina Republican chair, county chair, saying like, hey man, we know we can't black people can't vote, so we just choose certain areas. We're not going to get all the black people.
It's like at the end of that clip.
That's exactly what it is.
It's literally at the end of the clip too, where Madvi's like, oh, so, but this will probably hurt black people's ability to vote. And he goes, oh, gee, will it?
Yeah, exactly.
That was Rudy Giuliani.
Of course. And we also have clips of Donald Trump giving another reason why this is clearly a Muslim ban. I'll get to that in a second. But here's another dose of reality for you folks. We're 2 weeks away from Valentine's Day. Oh my God. Look, you know, for me, it's a little bit terrifying because
you don't get a pass in this environment.
It's also my wife's birthday. Yeah.
What's the matter with you?
It's
you
like,
get yourself into constant stress.
I know. Well, I mean, it's not like I was in charge of when she was born.
Well, you were in charge of who you married. Is what I'm
I know.
saying.
I mean, I should have said, like, wait, what? Your birthday is on Valentine's Day?
Hold on. That's far too much for me to handle.
I'm sorry. It's very difficult.
It's logistics.
But
it seems like you get to double up.
Yeah, one would think that. Yeah, you're wrong. Valentine's Day is near, and it's go time for thoughtful gift hunting. Thankfully, MeUndies has you covered with a limited edition matching pairs of undies for you and yours. Wow. This actually sounds like it could be, I don't know. It's a little cute.
I think it's cute.
Kelly says it's cute. with a range of styles and tons of great prints like flamingo, midnight camo, and even heavy petal. I can only imagine what that is. It's an edgy rose pattern. It's exclusive for Valentine's Day. There's sure to be something for everyone. Plus, MeUndies are made entirely out of what, Matt? Tell us. Come on.
Modal.
Right.
Modal.
He just throws it off like.
Just modal, man. Come on.
Been there.
The everyday part of life for me.
Do you own anything that's not modal, Matt?
Well, I mean, my underwear is primarily where the modal is.
All right. It's a fabric. How many times softer would you say it is than cotton, Matt?
Hundreds.
Hundreds?
I love how he doesn't vamp on this. It's like, no, it's serious business.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, don't make fun of it. I was on top of this like 4 years before you even started reading about MeUndies. It's 3 times. It's 3 times softer than cotton, so they are unbelievably comfortable. I really should I don't know what it is. I have like a mental block, but I can't have all the same kind of underwear. So like I have some days where I'm like, oh my God, this feels great. And then I have other days like I should get rid of these old ones, but I can't. I have to wait. Okay, sorry.
No, it's not really a surprise. It
Kelly's
totally
upset.
fits with your
I'm
personality. It makes total sense.
I'm just waiting for them to, like, if they're not completely ripped, why would I throw them
They
out?
feel so good. Now they feel bad.
Right, well, that's happened. For a limited time, our listeners get 20% off their first order plus free shipping, but you have to go to MeUndies.com/majority. With the MeUndies Better Day Guarantee, you have nothing to lose. Because if you don't love them, they'll give you your money back and let you keep the first pair. Go to MeUndies.com/majority right now for 20% off your first order. That's MeUndies.com/majority. Also, I'm a day away from being very excited about dinner. I feel like now I live from like Wednesday to Thursday. That's it. And then I wait for the following Wednesday and Thursday because those are the days we get Blue Apron. You know this about Blue Apron. The seafood is sourced sustainably under standards developed in partnership with the Monterey Aquarium Seafood Watch. The beef is raised humanely. They use regenerative farming practices for all their produce. It can be delivered to 99% of continental U.S. and 99.5% of food deserts. And because Blue Apron ships the exact amount of each ingredient required for a recipe, they're reducing food waste. Told you about how both my kids like to cook. It's actually like, reminds me, we went to this one school that we were looking at for Mila for middle school. Because you got to go to all the public schools. It's a horrible nightmare. But the best schools have these things where they bring in problems that kids can solve in a multitude of different ways, and they work on different parts of it. I don't know why I keep thinking about that when we make dinner like this, because we can give Saul one thing to do and Mila another. I've said this before, but it's literally the only thing that both my kids enjoy doing simultaneously. Coming up, mushroom and cabbage dumplings, Sicilian cauliflower pizza, cumin crusted pork. Oh my God. The spicy shrimp and Korean rice cakes we had last week, they were awesome. I, however, got home a little bit late that night, and Mila had eaten almost all the shrimp. But it was delicious. Check out this week's menu. Get your first 3 meals free with free shipping by going to blueapron.com/majority. You're going to love how good it feels and tastes to create incredible home-cooked meals with Blue Apron, so don't wait. That's blueapron.com/majority. It's a better way to cook. All right, let's play just a sound clip here. This is from, I want to read this. Hold on. I want to read this thing just to give you a notion of the turmoil that where is this? This is hilarious to me. I mean, it's hilarious, but it's also a rolling nightmare. All right, so the White House put out a statement on their firing of Sally Yates. And we'll get to the whole rundown, but I want to just put this out because I thought this was pretty impressive of them. And it just goes to the entire pack of lies that they're telling about this. So they put out a statement as to why they fired Sally Yates. Ms. Yates is an Obama administration appointee who's weak on borders and very weak on illegal immigration. It's time to get serious about protecting our country. Calling for tougher vetting individuals traveling from 7 dangerous places is not extreme. It is reasonable and necessary to protect our country. Now, that struck me as being interesting. Calling for tougher vetting individuals for vetting for individuals traveling from 7 dangerous places is not extreme. Is that right? Because I seem to remember it being called something very similar to extreme.
We should only admit into this country those who share our values and respect our people. In the Cold War, we had an ideological screening test. The time is overdue to develop a new screening test for the threats we face today. I call it extreme vetting. I call it extreme vetting.
All right, I stand corrected. They're right. Calling for tougher vetting for individuals traveling from 7 dangerous places is not extreme. It's extreme vetting.
John, you can never get it right. Even when you're right, you're wrong, and your suits don't fit. Go swallow some more gum somewhere else. Steve and I have a cross to burn.
It's easy to get burnt out at the beginning of the year, isn't it, folks? I'll tell you, 5 days into the...
It is easy to get burnt out.
The Trump administration, I feel
the
like...
sharpest observation of the show.
In which case, you may already be due for a tropical getaway at the Pineapple Beach Club in Antigua.
Hi, everyone. I brought my Speedos. Does anybody want to argue about Trump with me? No? Fine. I'll read my Social Security and comfort myself on the beach.
This amazing getaway comes at an even more amazing price. For just $149 per person per night, you can enjoy an adults-only, all-inclusive getaway on a white sandy beach. And I think that includes anybody over the age of 16. Plus, you get a $250 resort credit, which can be used for sailing trips, romantic dining, safari tours, spa services, or gift shop purchases. Just go to pineapplebeachclub.com to make your reservation today. Like, I feel like I'm almost going to start crying at the notion of an adults-only vacation without my kids at a beach place.
I would do it.
All right. The resort encompassed 30 acres of tropical foliage and panoramic vistas, just 30 minutes away from the capital city, St. John's. 5 restaurants, 3 bars and lounges, 2 freshwater pools, and a spa. I think everybody in this office is about to break out in tears because of this.
I just want to leave.
We all want to go.
We go.
So make time for some well-deserved R&R. Go to pineapplebeachclub.com or call 800-772-8711 to book your all-inclusive stay. For $149 per night per person, you can enjoy everything I just mentioned and more. And you get a $250 resort credit. That's pineapplebeachclub.com. See website for complete details. Literally, I'm distracted as I'm reading that, thinking, like, is it possible to do the whole show from down there?
Broadcasting live from the Pineapple Beach Club.
Yeah. Those are the.
Yeah, I like that.
All right,
Sean
let's get
Spicer's
into this.
A moron. Let's go dip.
Yeah, exactly. I will be. All right, I want to get into this question of firing Sally Yates. I mean, I think what we saw last night was, one of the things that we've been talking about is watching the professionals in our government take stands. Now, I think Sally Yates must have known that she was going to be replaced anyways. And so this stance did not come at a huge price for her. But so what? It was the right thing to do. I mean, you had seen multiple court cases over the past 48 hours. The government lose. And by all accounts, like the government lawyers didn't even know how to in any way defend this. And we know this is part of Sally Yates' job description. And how do we know this? Because back in March of 2015, Sally Yates had to be confirmed by the Senate for her job as then the assistant assistant attorney general. And she was, it wasn't grilled, but she was asked and questioned and wanted to hear this from a senator that she was going to maintain some measure of independence, that if there was something that was wrong about a law, she would not hesitate to say this law is wrong or this is illegal or unconstitutional. And she was questioned by a Republican senator on this. In fact, she was questioned by none other than Jefferson Beauregard Sessions on this very question.
If I'm in a discussion where people have different views, I want to make sure I've got what I need to back up my views.
Well, you have to watch out because people will be asking you to do things you just need to say no about. Do you think the Attorney General has a responsibility to say no to the President if he asks for something that's improper? A lot of people have defended the Lynch nomination, for example, by saying, well, he appoints somebody who's going to execute his views. What's wrong with that? But if the views the President wants to execute are unlawful, should the Attorney General or the Deputy Attorney General say no?
Senator, I believe that the Attorney General or the Deputy Attorney General has an obligation to follow the law and the Constitution and to give their independent legal advice to the President.
Wow, I'm very happy to hear that.
Now,
because we have a Muslim-born Kenyan socialist as the president.
Now, Mrs. Yates, you are aware that you are going to be asked to implement Sharia law, are you not? Would you find that compatible with the Constitution?
So there you have Jeff Sessions saying that what Sally Yates, 2 years before she did was totally appropriate.
This is totally hypothetical and unprompted.
And here's the thing. The real question now, as they are holding a hearing for Jeff Sessions, who was a key figure on the Trump campaign, one of the first supporters of Donald Trump, whose chief of staff, whose closest aides now work in the Trump administration. In fact, one of them co-wrote his inaugural speech. Can that guy actually meet the same standard that he demanded of Sally Yates 2 years ago? There's every reason to believe that this immigration law, at the very least, came out of conversations that Steve Bannon had with Jeff Sessions that apparently were ongoing.
In the clip I played yesterday, when Bannon contradicted Trump's rambling about wanting educated, affluent immigrants in the country, and he said, I think we're not just an economic culture, we're also a civic culture. He said, I'm with Sessions on this. Like, he quoted him specifically.
That when someone says, like, I'm that notion of civic culture is basically code word for I'm not a full-on white supremacist insofar as I don't like to wear sheets. You know, it's just like basically different, just slightly different variant of white nationalism.
That's full-on white supremacy. Where the wearing sheets part is where when you want to also kill the people.
Okay, I stand corrected.
And that Sessions supposedly also, I think it's important to note, Trump was interested in him as Secretary of State because Trump's sort of personal regard for the guy, but Sessions preferred Attorney General. He wants that position specifically.
Right, because he knows he can actually do the most damage to our society.
Exactly.
So what else is... how else do we know that this is a Muslim ban? It doesn't ban all Muslims. Just like when you disenfranchise black people from voting, you're not disenfranchising all black people, right? When the Supreme Court has found over the course of the past 50 years, 60 years, that a state or a county is targeting African Americans to lose the right to vote, nobody says, well, it can't be racist because there are black people who vote. And if all black people aren't denied the voting, right, then it can't be racist. Nobody makes that argument because it's a joke. You'd get laughed at. People would laugh in your face. So the idea that this can't be a ban on Muslims entering the country simply because there's a bunch of other Muslim countries that are allowed to come in is absurd. This is specifically targeting Muslims. And how do we know this? Well, we know it because Rudy Giuliani told us how this was developed and how he whitewashed it. And we also know it because last week, Donald Trump made it clear on the Brody file with CBN's David Brody.
CBN's Brody.
You know Brody.
Christian
Brody. Donald Trump sat down with him in the Oval Office for a one-on-one with David Brody, and made it absolutely clear that when they pass this thing, somebody's going to get priority. Now,
Brody.
I imagine that in these 7 countries, there's probably a mix of religions, right? There's Islam. That's the vast majority of them.
That's correct.
There would be Christian. Mm-hmm. And I bet maybe amongst those 7, there's a Jew or two.
There's a Jew or two.
And maybe a Hindu.
And no.
Maybe A?
I guess.
Maybe.
There could be anything.
And maybe a couple of Manichaeans.
So there's more Zoroastrians than either of those two in these places.
But basically we're talking about Christians and Muslims that would come from these countries. Vast majority, of course, Muslims and Christians. Why do I say that? Because one of the ways you can also make sure that your ban is targeted towards Muslims is to give preference to someone who's not Muslim coming from that country.
Persecuted Christians, we've talked about this overseas. Right. The refugee program or the refugee changes you're looking to make, as it relates to persecuted Christians, do you see them as kind of a priority here?
Yes.
You do?
Yes, they've been horribly treated. Do you know, if you were a Christian in Syria, it was impossible, at least very, very tough to get into the United States. If you were a Muslim, you could come in. But if you were a Christian, it was almost impossible. And the reason that was so unfair is that everybody was persecuted, in all fairness, but they were chopping off the heads of everybody, but more so the Christians. And I thought it was very, very unfair. So we are going to help them.
Now, the reality of this is that in 2016, Muslims made up nearly half of refugee admissions at 46%. Christians made up 44% of the refugees admitted.
Almost impossible.
Now, I know that sounds impossible. And this is coming from largely Muslim countries. So he's lying. And they've made it absolutely clear that they're going to give preference to Christians coming from these countries. So when you're giving preference to Christians coming from 7 Muslim countries, you are clearly making a decision on who gets into this country based upon religion. And we have a constitution that says our government cannot engage in that type of picking winners and losers based upon religion. I mean, that's what I'm just trying to frame it.
I like how you found
conservative.
the one time that phrase is actually operative in something other than making a completely fucking moronic statement.
Trump has a disproportionate fixation with chopping off of heads. I just like to point out he keeps mentioning it.
I think the phraseology is odd. Like chopping off heads is unfair.
You've obviously seen it. That it's unfair. Is
unfair. It's totally unfair to chop off heads.
It also signals like the CNN sort of complicity in it. They had an article fact-checking fear-mongering, and they were showing videos like that.
They have like, this is don't keep it rash cutting video. Let's cut over now to a new beheading.
I mean, you know, when we used to rail on Sam Harris for justifying these things, the reason was because it was inevitable a day like this would come, right? And a day where it's also inevitable there's going to be a day where we get attacked. That there's going to be, I mean, statistically speaking, it seems impossible to imagine that we will not have a recent immigrant of one of these countries or others commit some type of terror attack. I mean, because we get these kind of terror attacks from people who just been living in Arizona their whole lives.
And incidentally,
or Ohio.
And incidentally, yeah, absolutely. And I mean, also, I just want to circle back that the other point that we also made about these Sam Harris morons and their acolytes and followers was that it would never happen. These policies that they advocated in these fantasy conditions, they also were the ones who said the only people who speak honestly about Islam are neo-fascists. He said that years ago with regard to the European far right. So while at the same time saying, oh, of course, we would never support anything like this and adding all sorts of ludicrous caveats, they never even owned the consequences once.
He said it about Donald Trump.
And he said it about, he also said that he would prefer
somebody
Ben
on Twitter.
I don't remember him saying
somebody on Twitter. In fact, I just retweeted it earlier, and I liked it.
What did he say?
He did one of those genius things where you highlight and annotate a Sam Harris thing. And so he has all the examples. I mean, God bless him. But at one point, he, I did everything. So he's writing. He's annotating one of Sam Harris. I'm sorry, one of the. I've tried to look at this, and Sam Harris is like very professionalized. Splash page came up to ask me to sign up to his newsletter. No, I won't. He wrote. Of course, Sam Harris. Whenever anything comes up that he
take
has,
it out of context.
Yeah, he's written now
out of context.
His special, like, let me clarify my clarification
and of the clarification,
for my denial of my clarification of people's misunderstanding of everything I've ever written. Number 5,700. Okay,
Right.
so this is, I don't even know what this, one of these, it's a few thoughts on the Muslim ban, in quotations. And it starts with number 1. I did everything I could to make the case against Trump prior to the election. Of course, starting off with, this is really about me.
Yes.
Right? This is a few thoughts on the Muslim ban. All right. And then, of course, this guy gives the annotation and the link to, quote, only Donald Trump has expressed moral clarity on this issue of Islamic terrorism.
Yep.
And apparently it's on one of his on his podcast.
And that's always been the game. And
I did everything I could against Trump except for say that he had moral clarity when it came to the question of Islamic terrorism.
Well, and incidentally,
he does that mean? Moral clarity.
It's just the nonsense Harris speak. But the other thing that was actually extraordinary about him, and this is more like you're highlighting his disingenuous Weasley side, but his sort of really unself-aware and intellectually subpar side was the part of him what he clearly was shocked that so many of his followers supported Trump.
Yes.
It was like, where are you getting this from? That I've had this one-dimensional, bigoted worldview, and now because you're supporting a candidate that doesn't have all of the qualifiers and all of the bullshit. In fact, if I was a Sam Harris disciple, I might be refreshed by Trump. Like, thank you for just presenting this to me without all of the qualifications and the bullshit. Let's just get to business.
Yeah, I mean, I tweeted out something about Harris the other day, and I got, the full treatment from like, what's so hard to understand about a nuanced conversation about torture? That also, which they also, a lot of these Mars realize, like the conversation, his nuanced look at torture, which, came out in some instances, it's okay, but with a lot of qualifications. Happened to come out while the country was engaged in a massive political battle about the acceptance of torture.
Exactly. It was the whole, and then they say
that was just a total coincidence.
And then so our intellectual inquiry and free exchange of ideas should be determined by what's happening in the historical moment. I've had people say that to me in response to that.
Right.
He shouldn't be allowed. And I was like, and incidentally, the article boiled down to, at best, like a incredibly boring version of like a synopsis of 24.
But I mean, yes.
It's like the same argument.
Exactly. I mean,
sometimes Kiefer Sutherland needs to pull somebody's nails out because there's a bomb.
Right.
Thank you.
Right.
For the thought experiments.
That in and of itself was ridiculous. But the idea that you don't have to take responsibility for suddenly coming to this incredible thought experiment in the midst of a massive political debate about real-world implications of this. Like, oh, that was a total coincidence,
But that's the other game.
Yes.
That's the other constant
I take
game.
no responsibility
Yes.
for how people actually put this stuff out there. I'm a public intellectual. Like
I'm a
it's just
public
like,
intellectual writing and
these
intervening
issues-
on the main policy questions of the day, which should never be misconstrued to mean that I'm advocating for
people
anything,
don't even
obviously.
let people. This is like the Truman Capote defense from people who are but his films are great. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, when Truman Capote, there was a time where Truman Capote, they were trying to bring him back. They were trying to
rehabilitate him.
No, bring him back into this country. I can't remember what it was.
You're talking about
about 4 or 5 years ago.
Not Truman Capote. Roman Polanski.
Roman Polanski.
I was
Roman
very
Polanski.
confused by
Sorry. Roman Polanski. And they were trying to bring him back into the country for his statutory rape stuff. And there was some directors just like, his work was amazing. And it was like, yeah, great. I'll tell my daughter. Like, hey, listen, if you're going to get raped, make sure that they know they're good with mise en scene. And
let me interject really quickly and say that although it was statutory rape because she was, I think, 13.
Let's not get into a debate about that, please, because I don't want to get into a debate as to whether or not.
No debate. It was just rape. He raped her.
Oh, it was rape.
Drugged and
yes,
raped her.
Yes.
That's it.
Yes. And the point being that this idea that somehow like, oh, he can't be held to, he's a public, he's talking philosophy. He can't be held responsible for the political implications of what he's talking about. It's not his fault how his words, which he does more than any marketing, SEO does to get out there in the midst of a political debate about something. I just happen to be a philosopher.
That was the thing that he said too during when he a couple years ago when
Please,
he was promoting.
no Chomsky, please debate me.
Yeah,
yes. I just want to have a philosophical conversation. So much so that I'm going to actually share our private correspondence.
And then when he was whining about his accountability a couple years ago, he said, "I have a book on meditation, and I didn't want to talk about this. The only reason you're on CNN to talk about a meditation book is because you're an Islamophobe."
Of course.
And I just have to add one more point. People have dismissed a guy like Heidegger, who actually is one of the most important sort of thinkers in the modern era, because he backed Nazis. I don't think these same people would say like, we should just completely disaggregate his public engagement from his philosophical output. And that's actually like a complicated figure, not some sort of like intro logic.
You don't
guy.
Understand.
I know. Out of context.
You just don't understand.
Out of context.
Another guy who's completely misunderstood, of course, is Jeffrey Lord on CNN. Jeffrey Lord trying to argue that this is not a Muslim ban, and then wrapping it up by arguing, well, it probably is.
Supporters. Right. I have one thing that I question, Selena, which is this idea that you and Jeffrey are putting out there that they get what the reality is, but they like that he's protecting them. I don't know how those two go together, because we just had Congressman Chris Collins on. You can't defend the ban on the basis of fact, Jeffrey. You can't do it because the threat doesn't exist from the groups that are being banned right now. You know this. You've heard the stats again and again. So I get that people are afraid because you're making them afraid, but I don't get where the threat is articulated in fact to encourage this ban.
Wow.
Yes,
Chris,
Jeffrey.
my friend.
Please.
Look. I mean, these are people living their everyday lives, and they look at the collective here. They look at 9/11. They look at what happened in San Bernardino.
This would not have stopped 9/11.
Or
San Bernardino.
Chris, they're looking at threat. They're looking at threat. This is what they see as reality.
But you're selling the solution that wouldn't have saved them from those threats.
Chris, they are looking at the fact that, and it is a fact, that he wants to protect them. That's what they're looking at. And they're looking at this, and they're seeing that it could be them, it could be anybody, any day.
I know, but...
And the fact that you're, Chris, you're dancing around this.
No,
you're saying, oh, well, this kind of...
Honestly, I think I'm stopping the music, to be honest with you. Because I'm saying,
well, Chris,
show me the facts that justify the threat from refugees. Show me the fact that justifies the threat from refugees in this country right now, or from any of the people in those countries that you're stopping right now.
Chris, I don't, my friend, I'm not sure you hear how you sound. The way what you just said sounds, it's like people are hearing, okay, let's wait until we get a whole bunch of dead people, and then we'll do it.
No,
I mean, they're not going to go down that road.
I get that works for you. I get it, and I applaud your efforts. Do that. That's what politics is about. Here's what I'm saying. If you're going to ban people, if you're going to keep me safe from the people who want to hurt me. Put Saudi Arabia on the list, because that's where all the 9/11 people came from. You didn't do that. Why? Make me safe from the real threat, Jeffrey. If someone's trying to break into the house, don't take my house cat and throw it out the window. Stop the guy at the window.
How many times has he said that the real threat is radical Islam? Radical Islam. So it doesn't make any difference. You want to divide people. You want to divide people geographically. I'm saying what he's targeting is radical Islam, something he has talked about endlessly.
So how do refugees fit into that argument, Jeffrey?
Because we're not being attacked by a bunch of Episcopalians, Allie. We're being attacked by
and there it is.
So it is a religious thing.
There it is. Thank you, Jeffrey.
Thank you, Jeffrey Lord.
When did Chris Cuomo get so solid over the
Wow.
last couple of days?
On SJW. Chris Cuomo.
All of a sudden, the guy's Perry Mason.
It was very Perry Mason, and there it is.
I mean, how long did that take? That took almost fully 3 minutes for Jeffrey Lord to get to, this is about religion.
I do like Lord. He's exhausted with his Skype hookup and his Reagan picture.
Right.
He's like, look, it's about, I'm not in the administration, obviously. We hate Muslims. What more do you want? Why is Saudi not on the list? Because they have money. Use some basic logic, Chris.
Oh, my gosh. Do I need to spell this out for you?
It's like, Chris, a couple years ago, I was advising some weird subpar billionaires on direct mail strategies to overcome civil rights.
Chris,
now everybody knows my name. Give
Have
me a
you
break.
not been looking at what I've been blinking? I've been doing Morse code. It's about the Muslims. God, I just got to say it out loud. Jesus. You know, I'll tell you something. I'll tell you what. You don't necessarily need to go there because Donald Trump has offered it many times and Rudy Giuliani, but you could take that Jeffrey Lord thing into court. Here's a surrogate of Jeffrey Lord. This guy has been a surrogate from day one at some points. I don't know if he was paid or not.
It's actually an interesting question. You know, there was a great moment, I remember right after the election, Waz and I played it with Jeffrey Lord on CNN, and they were finally talking about the sort of white supremacist nature of Breitbart. And Jeffrey Lord said two great things in succession. First, he's like, well, I don't think there's anything particularly controversial about Breitbart. I read it every day. We were like, I believe that. And then he goes, there's very little difference between what they say and what Rush says. They're like, yeah, I believe that.
Wow.
Connecting the dots.
All right. One more point I wanted to make here, and then we'll go into the fun half. And we're going to play some of the sound. We're still trying to get more sound isolated from this Virginia meeting where the Republicans basically had, what do you call those? Is it a jam session where they get together and they... Not a jam session. What is it when you get together and everybody's sort of like...
rap session?
Maybe a rap session. Or there's another word for it. Like...
confab?
No, where everybody gets into a circle and they just talk about
Drum
their
circle?
problems. It's not like...
Sharing circle?
It's like a sharing circle. I don't know. But they were all talking about how they don't know how they're going to do the Affordable Care Act repeal because there's some major issues like the 20 million people who are not going to be on there, or the fact that David Bratt was complaining that people are coming up to me, women getting in my face. And we'll get to that.
The ladies want the health care.
Yeah, they're all laughing, literally laughing at the idea that all these women know like CBO numbers.
They look at CBO as like a monkey flying a plane.
We also have a clip of Paul Ryan swearing. I love it.
We also have to explain.
But this is the one that I want to play because this one's encouraging. Now, I have mixed feelings about slowing down Tom Price's nomination because the Trump administration is going to use this as an excuse as to why they won't be repealing the Affordable Care Act. But they don't need Tom Price to repeal the Affordable Care Act. They didn't even tell any of their Department of Homeland Security officials they were implementing a ban of Muslim countries. So they certainly can do this. But the one thing that Democrats can do to stop nominees from going forward is to literally not show up at the votes to push them out of committee, because it would prevent these committees from having quorum and they could not vote in favor or against even any of these nominees. This is pretty serious stuff. There was obviously a lot of this. Republicans did this a lot during the Obama administration. But for top cabinet officials, this is pretty big stuff. And the way they're justifying it, it's perfectly justified, is that in one instance, Tom Price lied to the Finance Committee about his insider trading. Which
I'm just very disappointed that my colleagues in the United States Senate would hold my lying and insider trading against me. I think that if we can't put that aside and move forward.
It's not the insider trading. It's the lying about it.
The lying, right.
I think everyone could understand why I wouldn't want to be too frank about that.
We're all humans here, are we not?
I mean,
are there any black people on the
who
committee?
amongst us here would want to admit that they had used their position as a congressperson to increase the value of the stocks that they don't know that they own?
And you saw Senator Warren ask me about it. My Lord, does that woman ever tire of her own voice?
The other is they're holding up Steve Mnuchin because Steve Mnuchin told
Mnuchin is practically like robo-signing foreclosures during the testimony.
Right.
I never did that. It's just terrible.
His hand is underneath the thing where he's just going, chunk, chunk.
I would never want us to do anything like that, Stephen.
Stephen McKenzie, VP.
I heard stories
he
like...
He lied about One West robo-signing, and they have clearly, demonstrably, they've had cases thrown out of court because of their robo-signing. So here is Sherrod Brown basically saying, like, look, they came and they lied to us, and he's making it about that lie, which is, I think, probably the best thing that you can do, as opposed to saying, like, oh, these are horrible human beings. Why should we approve them? But here's Sherrod Brown.
We're not going to this committee today because we want the committee to regroup, get the information, have these two nominees come back in front of the committee, clarify what they lied about. I would hope they'd apologize for that, and then give us the information that we all need for our states.
There you have it. All they have to do is come in to the committee, hopefully apologize for lying, but just explain to us, what specific lies did you tell? Could you please tell us? That seems fair.
Can we do a compromise where I admit I lied to you, but we don't get specific about it? Hold on, I need a new foreclosure pen. Just give me a second.
Mnuchin also forgot about $100 million that he had.
Well, that
offshore.
happens.
I know. I forget sometimes.
Look, if we're going to talk about the money that I've hidden in the Caymans, I'm not even going to negotiate with you, okay? Let's have some modicum of decency here.
I will concede the hiding of $150 million. But if you want the full boat, forget it. All right, we're going to take a quick break, head into the fun half. Folks, you can join us in the fun half by becoming a member today. Just go to jointhemajority.report.com. Become a member. Yes. We give you a bonus hour of the show, usually more, should be less, but what can we do?
Don't be a schmuck. Become a member.
Oh, and also, what is the Chuck Schumer? There's a protest at Grand Army Plaza today to get Chuck Schumer to grow a pair. I saw him at Wayne Barrett's memorial.
Grow a pair? What more can I grow?
And so people are going to be protesting up at, I think I'm going to be heading up there with Saul.
It's the worst protest ever. There are Palestinians and some schmuckle from my temple.
The Majority Report. Why is he there? Oh my God, there he is.
I see you.
It's called the What the Fuck Chuck protest,
exactly.
And it's outside of his house.
Well, Grand Army Plaza. He lives right.
Yeah,
he
lives right off of Grand Army Plaza.
Right. Also, you can gift the show by going to majoritygift.com. It's all automated. You can do 1 month, you can do 12 months, you can do any amount in between, not weeks or days. JustCoffee.coop, fair trade coffee, tea, or chocolate. If you buy crap from Amazon or Jet, you can do so at our link at majorityreportkickback.com. We'll be right back tonight. Donald Trump and an 8 p.m. primetime special is going to be announcing his pick for the Supreme Court. I think it's going to be that Handeman guy simply because the guy's from New Jersey and his sister's going to say pick him.
And that's why I'm nominating Mike Flynn Jr. He did a great job during the campaign. He was dogged in investigating the pizza rape ring, which is just really terrible.
Horrible.
Just terrible. I mean, sex rings can be
Tomorrow
totally
we'll
fun.
be
but not a
talking
pizza
about
parlor.
that and other things. Who knows what else is going to happen? We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back after this. 646-257-3920. We are back. 646-257-3920 is the number. 646-257-3920 is the number. Bertold Met.
We're losing our spiritual essence as a society, Mr. Chairman.
So, with Jelani Cobb, that green footballs guy, and Nasty Gal 69420, and the rest of Unite Blue crowd on board with the general strike, I think it's time for the MR crew to apologize to Susan Sarandon, who was right. I mean, liberals supporting a general strike. What a time to be alive.
We never will. Just give me 1 second to pop some pressure before you lose it.
Look, you understand where we're going to be on the other side of this. People are not going on general strike for any progressive policies. Anything past the baseline of where we were with Obama. This is not going to be about single-payer health care.
We're going on general strike to
People are going
preserve
general
the
strike
gains of the 1960s.
Yes, to preserve Medicare.
And birthright citizenship, which is coming. I mean,
do you understand what liberals are going to say when this is over, assuming that it is over at one point? It's hard to see that time.
I don't know about
They're going to
that.
say, like, so much better than Trump. Do people really are so desperate to, oh, Sam, it's a joke. Okay.
Yeah, I think
Oh my God.
Bertelmek's a smart guy. I think that was he got you.
Oh my God.
But actually, can we say one thing though that I actually do think is important?
I'm sorry, Bertelmek. I probably should have known. It's just that I honestly, somebody tweeted me at that.
Sam got triggered.
What's the matter, Snowflake? You need a safe space from stupidity. I know you literally are going to give this guy a heart attack. It's incredible. Like, and nothing makes him, like, if there's anything that makes Sam more angry than what's actually happening to this country, it's like a particular line of dumb left arguments. It's
yes,
kind
we're
of
like,
extraordinary.
this is great. I can't believe how great this is. Look at how energized people
everybody is getting dumber simultaneously.
I do think it's like
Clinton people are with the and it's Moscow, and we weren't ballsy enough to even tie Trump to Ryan, but Obama should have shut down the federal government and accused Trump of treason. But of course, we couldn't run ads in Wisconsin, so it's his fault. Like, everybody, when they need to get smartest, is getting dumbest. But can I just say one thing?
Although I will say, I am encouraged that people are getting activated and going out and fighting this. Because
gotta be on the streets.
We're not at the worst case scenario, and it seems to me, it's almost, if people keep this up, we will never be at the worst case scenario, which is all this happens and everybody's just like, what are you gonna do?
And it's a massive car crash, but it's like the scenario where it's like, hey, there was this horrific plane crash and miraculously only a couple of people died.
Right.
Like, that's literally what it is.
Right. They stayed alive by eating each other. Right. And so they all didn't die. It's like one. Do you remember that story? This was very big when I was a kid.
I've heard of that story.
A soccer team crashed. The airplane crashed in the Andes. And I remember reading this. One of the first books I remember reading it because it was about people eating other people to stay alive.
Right.
That tends to stick with you. But yes, it's like, look, it really brought out the survival instinct in those guys, and that was really good. We needed that. Their determination to win was so increased from that.
Don't you think, though, that it is actually now, just regardless of these old arguments which are irrelevant, like, it's not going to be enough moving forward, though. Like, if it's just, I get practically in some ways it's just pure resistance to the siege. But if it ends up being like, that seemed like what the opposition to Bush just became, like, there was no actual alternative. It was just they suck, and then that did set the stage for what you're talking about, which is just anything that's not them is acceptable.
Right.
We need to practically inject a left-wing forward agenda into this.
Yes. I
so
think we're not going to go back to where we were in the aughts.
And that is where it's relevant.
And the difference here from the Bush years is that Donald Trump went into office with his numbers flipped from where Bush was
right.
throughout, the first 5 or 6 years of his presidency.
It took
this is what
him
I've
6
said.
years to get where
we've had some
Trump
people,
is, right?
Yeah, we've had emails who've been listening to Listen to Air America who remember that time, and they agree with me in the sense that they feel that it's not as isolating to be against Trump as it was. Against Bush.
Against Bush.
Because you would say, like the idea. I mentioned this the other day, right? The Bush derangement syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you would be accused of. You have Bush derangement syndrome. And then around 2006, people were like, yeah, Bush is an asshole. But now, nobody says, like, you're irrationally reacting to Donald Trump.
No.
Even I had a conversation with my dad when Trump was elected. And he's like, well, I think the Republican establishment will. And the other day, he was like, I can't believe this.
Yeah, no, it's for real. But I do think that the ideological battle will still be there, and it does matter.
The real question is how much will this hurt the Republican Party? And I think it's starting to. You can have Paul Ryan was out there today trying to sound reasonable about the ban. Still supportive of it, of course. The biggest Donald Trump enabler in the country is Paul Ryan. All of his cachet, all of his goodwill with the American public, he is using just for the holy grail of cutting Social Security and Medicare. And so he's got to go out there and toe the line. But apparently he finds it a little bit annoying. Here we go. Here's Paul Ryan walking off from his speech today on CNN. Happened to catch a hot mic where Paul Ryan sums up not only what it was for him, his press conference, but also for the rest of us.
Security.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker.
Waste my fucking time.
All right, we're going to break.
If you didn't hear that, let's play that one more time. Just listen carefully. He's still mic'd, doesn't realize his mic is still hot.
Waste my fucking time.
All right, we're going to break away.
I could be focused on making children and elderly people live on the streets and have to scrap and scavenge for food, when instead I could go defend the goddamn Muslim ban. God. What the Christ? He's starting to turn into Reince Priebus.
Yes.
It's an army of Reince Priebuses.
The only thing that is good about Trump is just specifically what he does to Republican individuals. The way, like, first of all, he reveals all of them as being completely hollow and without any core, and then he just gradually degrades them.
Well, they degrade themselves.
Right, of course, by showing who they are. But I also thought what was funny before, because I said maybe he did that on purpose. He's such a snake, and I like that you said no. It would have been like such a waste of my time.
Golly gee willikers, I could be helping the American public.
Yeah, exactly. If it was staged. Gosh darn it, I just want to bring jobs back to Janesville, Wisconsin. It's such a waste of my time. Did everyone get that?
Here is Sean Spicer doing what do they call this? The triple Lindy? I mean, it turns out that the Quebec City shooter of a mosque, how many people? Five at last count, right? 5 people killed and multiple injuries. But I know that at least one is in intensive care. And Sean Spicer uses 6 people now died. And supposedly this guy is a Donald Trump and Marine Le Pen fan. And here's Sean Spicer trying to argue that's why you need to ban Muslims.
I want to start off by noting that the president got off the phone just a short time ago with Canadian Prime Minister Trudeau to discuss the vicious attack on a Quebec City mosque last night. The president offered his condolences as well as his thoughts and prayers to the victims and their family and to all Canadians. This is another senseless act of violence that cannot be tolerated. The president also pledged to support the Canadian Police and Intelligence Service in any way necessary. Prime Minister Trudeau was extremely appreciative, and he was also cautious to draw conclusions on the motives at this stage of the investigation, and the president shared those thoughts. Canadian law enforcement officials are actively investigating this matter. We condemn this attack in the strongest possible terms. It's a terrible reminder of why we must remain vigilant and why the president is taking steps to be proactive rather than reactive when it comes to our nation's safety and security.
My supporters are very spirited, I will tell you.
He literally doesn't have thoughts or prayers.
Very spirited. My supporters, it's tough. But
let's
they're
be
spirited.
careful if we wanted to speculate about this guy's motives. I mean, just be cautious.
We shouldn't go out. In general, I think we need to be more cautious as a culture and not run ahead of. Sometimes we let our mouths get ahead of our thought process, and we make things up, and we lie, and we have magical thinking and conspiracy theories. And I think we really need to tone that down.
According to the suspect who has been ID'd, a guy named Alexandre Bissonnette. Now this is reported according to the Le Journal de Québec, a friend of his from high school, or I guess someone who knew him from high school, guy named Eric DeBroise. He really liked Trump and had a permanent grudge against the left. His politics are very right-wing and ultra-white nationalist, white supremacist. He has right-wing, pro-Israel, anti-immigration political ideas. And that's why we need to ban immigrants.
Yes, because the guys like this will be less triggered if they're not here. That actually sounds like a good Sam Harris article.
Yes.
The way to protect us from the rising neo-fascist terrorism is to ban Muslims because it triggers a correct but irrational response. Taken out of context,
If
don't even
Barack
respond.
Obama had already banned immigrants from these countries, Donald Trump wouldn't have had the ability to ban immigrants from these countries.
Think about it. And by the way, that shouldn't be taken to mean that I suggested that Obama should ban people. That would be taking me out of context.
Calling from a 443 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Sam. This is Anthony from Baltimore.
Hello, Anthony. What's on your mind?
Hey, I just wanted to bring up a clip you played before the new year, and it was a clip of a Trump aide named, I think it was Anthony Scaramucci.
Mm-hmm.
And he was, I think he was trying to get the names of all the Klein scientists and said it was a mere exercise of intellectual curiosity.
Trying to understand what the fuck is going on.
And so I started thinking about that clip, and to me, an exercise of intellectual frickin' curiosity reminded me a lot of a frickin' thought experiment. And it was then that I realized that the unsophisticated, simplistic, and out-of-touch side of Sam Harris that Michael was referring to earlier, coupled with his sociopathic callousness, when you strip away any facade of intellectualism that he has, his positions, which are apparently wildly complicated, are better understood when you articulate them in an Italian mobster accent. And so just entertain me here with a little thought experiment. Now imagine if a terrorist had planted a frickin' bomb somewhere and he wouldn't frickin' tell you where that bomb was. Now if we had this frickin' Gula Schmidt data tied up to a stool, all I'm saying is, if we bashed his frickin' kneecaps in with a ball-peen hammer, he'd be singing like a fucking canary. That's all I'm saying.
You know what the problem with this is? Is that if I start sort of following your lead on this new interpretation of Sam Harris, I'll become a fan.
Yeah, Harris. Appreciate the call.
Well, then all I'm saying is here, I'm not advocating torture. You got your guy all frickin' wrong here.
I appreciate
I think
the call.
this is an intellectual curiosity expedition.
Hey, as a matter of fact, I think taking Mr. Trump out of context is very fucking dishonest intellectually.
What is so hard for you to understand about fucking nuance?
I'm just here for a free, open exchange of fucking ideas. But these motherfucking cocksuckers, the snowflake left, won't defend traditional liberal fucking values.
You called from I think it's a Skype call, 266. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Oh, hi, is this me?
Yeah, is it you? I don't know.
Oh, great. So I've been watching, this is David calling from Japan. I've been watching Sessions committee hearing, and it looks like it's just going to go down party lines, and that's really sad.
Yeah, I mean, sad for what? I mean, honestly, like the idea that any of these Republicans are going to in any way stand up to Donald Trump. I mean, I get really annoyed when people frame this as a spine. This is not a question of spine. These people don't care. This is perfect for them.
Well, I mean, I know that they don't. Well, also, it sounded kind of like Richard Blumenthal, my senator, didn't care, which was bad. But like, it's not so much like a question of, you know, the Republicans acting with spine or not, but they're all introducing this with like, well, I don't agree with him on everything, but you know, we won the election, so bye.
Right. Well, Trump won the election.
Good
I mean,
argument.
that's I mean, this is the way it's going to work. I mean, it's not surprising, and the Democrats have to just make it clear that the Republicans own this. This is a Republican project, and these are Republican principles. And there's really, I mean, there's no evidence to the contrary. You know, Lindsey Graham and John McCain can stand up and, you know, get themselves on the Sunday morning talk shows, but that doesn't mean anything if they don't actually vote against any of this stuff.
Well, yeah, you see John McCain everywhere saying all of these words, and also Lindsey Graham. I've listened to Lindsey Graham in the committee hearing, and he was also like, well, I don't agree, but oh well. I'm like, great, good standing up for nothing.
Right.
Thanks.
It's nothing.
I wasn't expecting it, but
it's branding. Appreciate the call.
So.
Oh wait.
Okay.
We have one more. All right. Bye. Yep. Sorry, folks. Got to be quick. Got to move this along. 330. Calling from a 330. 330. Who's this?
This is Richard. Are you there?
Yeah. Am I here? Yeah, of course. Richard, where are you calling
great.
from?
Well, I wasn't sure. From Ohio, but I'm calling. Actually, I'll try to keep this as short as possible, so I'll talk really fast. Okay.
Okay.
One thing was there's some claims floating around the internet that Paul Ryan hot mic thing is a hoax. I don't know, but I figured I'd mention it to you.
Okay.
Number two, I don't know if you guys saw the essay written in Medium the other day, basically arguing that the last 48 hours or so is kind of the trial balloon for a coup. You might want to check that out.
I've read that.
Sheer. Yeah, it had a certain amount of persuasiveness as far as I was concerned. But the main reason I wanted to call were two minor things. Nobody that I know of has talked yet about Trump's executive order about basically saying, well, if you want to pass a new regulation, you got to get get rid of two of the old regulations, which is like the most slimiest,
dumbest
executive order I've ever heard of in my life.
It's also, it's classic Republicanism. It's just dumb, right? I mean, this is the whole thing. The big talking point following the Affordable Care Act was like, we can't pass bills that are 1,000 pages long. We're only going to have bills that are 10 pages long, and that's it. I mean, it's just like the idea of like, I want to shrink the size of government. What? Why? Based on what? Just, it is
exactly.
just
so in other
stupid.
Words, you can pass, you can do something like put in a new regulation to protect the air, but that means you have to get rid of the regulations to protect the water.
Yeah, but you know what?
What?
You know, but also think about this. What does a regulation mean? Like, what is the definition of a regulation? Does that mean a paragraph? Does it mean like how do you measure a regulation? Can there be 3 parts to a regulation?
I would think so. I mean, I would hope that's the case.
I mean, here's the thing. This
that's
is
like the
for
CFR.
children. This type of governance is for children. It doesn't mean anything. He just puts that out there. Anybody who bites on that is a moron. Because you could have.
Well, I can't argue with you.
I know.
But nobody's actually writing about it. Nobody said squat about it.
Well, of course. I mean, look, there's a half a dozen stories here that if these had happened at any other time, that one, I haven't even gotten to the Affordable Care Act stuff. There was records now of Federal Reserve bankers literally laughing it up about unemployed people. This raid in Yemen where they kill al-Awlaki's daughter, 8-year-old daughter, and apparently it sounds like there could be a ton of other civilians killed, that the people who went on the raid say that it was completely botched. It sounds to me like this was one of those day one things. Like, they haven't been planning this for weeks or anything like that. That Trump came in, it's like, I want my raid. And let's do this. I mean, I think there's a bunch of stuff like that.
You know what I think it
There's
is?
just not enough. There's not enough bandwidth out there yet to absorb all of this news. And one of the pieces I read was that Jeff Sessions and Steve Bannon had this idea of like shock and awe. Come in the first week and just completely blow everything out so that there's no way to catch up on it.
I think with the raid, my impression is I recall that when President Obama came in within 24 hours, there were some people that were kidnapped by Somali pirates, and he ordered some snipers to basically kill the pirates and rescue the people. And it was, it was very like ghoulishly reported at the time, like, oh, he's really showing that he's not going to be a pussy law professor. And I think that to the extent Trump, maybe this could be wrong because he might have zero historical awareness, but I think if there was any inclination of remembering that desire to like out of the gate, I want to have a story like that to tell.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I can't argue with it. But listen, one more thing, and then I'll get off the line so you can have other people yell at you.
Okay, great. I appreciate that.
Because I've heard Michael a couple times keep referring to Ronnie Castor as kind of a good example of where we should be going. And honestly, I got to tell you, I admire the guy for what he did, but I don't think we're in the territory of smuggling bombs into New York. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I think we need a slightly less aggressively militaristic method of resistance.
Oh, you neoliberal
Yeah, you're
shill.
a neoliberal shill. Why don't you go give Richard Spencer a hug?
Yeah, well, that's what can I say?
Also, just to like
My wife's
clarify,
right here, so
because
I
of
won't
the
call
world
myself
that we're in, the Ronnie Castro's interview wasn't about smuggling bombs anywhere. It was actually the London recruits thing wasn't an armed operation. I would just like that on the public record before everybody starts getting arrested. Thanks for the call, though.
Right.
Go, cuck.
See you at the Hillary meetup.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think Ronnie Castro's liberating us from apartheid is a little bit inappropriate.
You just said there's nothing you could have said that would have offended Michael Moore. Nothing.
That's true.
Let's listen to this because this is not getting the attention it deserved. So there was, as you know, in Virginia, the Republicans got together for a retreat where they, God knows what they do in these retreats, right? They have trust falls where they, I don't know.
Burn owl effigies.
Yeah. The Washington Post obtained leaked audio of these Republicans at a closed-door session. And what do we have? Oh, we're going to pull that tomorrow? We do have that David Bratt thing, though, right? Where did that come from?
He had a town hall and somebody filmed it.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, we'll get that other audio. So about but they're clearly concerned about this. So here is audio and video, I guess, of David Bratt. Remember Dave Bratt? He's the one who took out Eric Cantor. And he's having a meeting, town hall meeting of conservative groups. I don't get the sense that this is a town hall per se, right? Somebody is shooting this, and it seems like it's sort of unofficial video. And this was that same meeting in Virginia, I think, of all the conservatives and legislators. And he's talking about how disturbed he is that his constituents seem to know what's going on with the repeal of the Affordable Care Act. And even more disturbing, some of these uppity constituents are women with math details. And he seems completely blown away by this.
And now, since Obamacare and these issues have come up, the women are in my grill. matter where I go. And they come up, when's your next town hall? And believe me, it's not to give positive input.
Yeah. They showed up here. Outside the lobby today, 15 minutes ago.
Right. And so on my Facebook, there's a whole new paradigm going on the official side, the campaign side. We're going to take away people's rights. And these are intelligent people. I met one of the women in my neighborhood at a high school event last week. Government thing I spoke on when they just got done going over on enumerated powers and all this stuff. Before the kids on Constitution Day, and mom comes up and says, I can't believe you're going to get rid of Obamacare. We have a right to it. And I go, did you miss the kids half hour earlier on? I don't think health care is in the enumerated powers, right? So I didn't say that thing. I try to be Christian, right, and kind. But she went at it, and she was quoting CBO, right? She knew CBO. She said CBO is scoring Obamacare. You're going to get rid of health care for 18 million people, and costs are going to go up. Well, I said, that's a little counterintuitive, though, isn't it? I mean, we're going to get rid of 18 million people and costs are going to go up. I said, how can that happen? Right? But that's the way CBO scores things. It's totally upside down. But that is what they say, and that's what they're quoting, and the left has it down, right? And they're out in whatever, 2 million in D.C. and Denver and Chicago and New York, and they're out, right? So that's the new thing. So what I want, I'm going to kind of work this backward, but the ask is, everybody in this room, everyone in this room knows this stuff, right? We're all in agreement, and so keep sharing the ideas. You got to have the ideas out there. But we need to get really organized, right? We got this one small little entity in this country that's got probably 100 million people in it that's underutilized. It's called the church.
Yes.
Yeah. And so get with your churches and help us identify which churches, Catholic, Protestant, Evangelical, Hispanic, African American, we're all united on that.
African American and Hispanic churches are united in not wanting people to have health care?
We all want to get together and cut health care. It is the Christian thing to do. And, of course, we can put these women back. Where are they coming from?
Where did levies come from? No, about CBO.
The guy up front, he's like, there's more of them outside.
They're all over. They're running around. They say the scores and everything. They're smart ladies.
They know numbers.
They're doing math. It's a lady doing math.
They're
it's like
in
a
my
monkey
grill.
on a pilot.
Getting in my grill.
I guess Brad has the same Ouija board that Trump does for MLK.
Yep.
By the way, women will keep harassing you about Obamacare, so we got to get together as churches.
Attorney Andrew, do you see any reason why Democrats should not campaign on impeaching Trump in 2018? Get us a Congress to impeach Trump now. I mean, I think I would wait until the spring of 2018 to make that assessment. I think it I don't know if I would nationalize the election in that way, but maybe. What's that?
Yeah, there's a lot of events in between.
Yeah.
Believe me.
Attorney, get rid of 2 refs for every new one. Just read the text. It's unclear what constitutes a rule or regulation. Regulations are set forth in the CFR. My reading of the executive order makes me think you can meet its terms in the following way. We have regulations 1, 2, and 3. We are presenting regulation 4. So we have now cut regulations 2 and 3 by moving them to regulation 1B and 1C. Exactly. It's just BS. I love Sarah Palin. During the presidential debates, I was so optimistic when Trump voters brought up Hillary Clinton's relationship with Saudi Arabia. I thought we were on the path to reevaluating our relationship with Saudi Arabia. But now it appears just those people were just using it as a talking point. Forget Health and Human Services. Why isn't Tom Price being indicted for insider trading? Indeed. Almighty, on behalf of Cuck Nation Chicago, I want to say we agree with Kelly on punching Nazis in the face just because we let other men plow our wives. Well, okay. Somebody on Twitter or in an email sent a picture of Captain America from, I think it was a World War II poster saying, I punched Nazis in the face.
What's funny, the one I got was he's punching a Nazi, and then there's like a circle of like kind of like anxiety-ridden sort of liberals being like, that might make him worse. I don't think we should do that. That's not dialogue.
BDX. It's worth noting that Harris said KSM was like a character who stepped out of a philosopher's thought experiment.
Khalid Sheikh
and
Mohammed.
that it's perverse to disavow his torture. Not much room for exculpating nuance there. You're going to have to click on the link that I've set up, which will take you to my blog, which has an explanation.
You're going to have to subscribe to the fucking newsletter if you want the context for that fucking paragraph. And up until such time, you're totally taking me out of context, which has no fucking integrity.
Click on the link entitled, My Explanation for That Comment, You F-Face. Then that will lead you to a link which will launch your browser to play a podcast. That podcast has embedded in it a URL that will take you to a fucking YouTube.
Inside
when
the
you get to the YouTube
description, there is a fucking link that you copy into your fucking browser to an endnote to a previous article's
but
link
before
that I wrote
you
4 years
take
ago.
that link, listen to the YouTube. Eliminate every fourth word. Take the first letter of those words. That will take you to the Vimeo password
Then
for
you got,
the explanation. And if you don't get that far, you don't understand my point.
and by the way, if you don't drop the letter I from all of the passwords I give you, then they're not the real passwords, and you're taking me out of fucking context.
Edgewater. At the next Trump press conference, whenever that is, some brave journalist needs to reference their question by referring to Bannon as President Bannon in the question. That's not going to happen.
That is the fastest way for that guy. Like the most effective way to avert a white nationalist coup is either Bannon's liver gives out or Trump hears the phrase President Bannon enough.
Someone would have to clean the Gruppenführer shit up at the podium. I like that, the Gruppenführer. Is that new?
Gruppenführer, that's the best one I've
Herr
heard.
Gruppenführer?
That's good. I like
Ronald
it.
Reagan. Immigration has also stopped adjudicating any and all cases involving foreign nationals from the banned countries. Extremely disruptive for immigrants who are already here in the U.S. Ronald Reagan, you should send an email with just like a full accounting of what you've experienced. You should post that somewhere. I sent this yesterday. Don't know if you saw it. There's language in the immigration executive order that's clearly meant to allow states to refuse refugees. I haven't seen anyone talking about this, but it's incredibly troubling. We try to unite refugees with their families already in the U.S. Some programs actually require refugees to have family already in the U.S. What happens if they live in a state that refuses refugees? Very troubling. Nick from Manitoba. Oh, Lordy, I do declare there's something mighty foul blowing in these here warm Virginia winds. On another note, I want to apologize for taking advantage of the IM system to send too many cuck jokes. Michael pointed out a few
Never
weeks
apologize.
ago how I've become deceitful in my ways to string you along and sneak in a cuck joke. I'm not going to even read anymore. The kind Cro-Magnon. What are your thoughts re the effectiveness of a general strike plan for February 17th? Why that day?
I don't know why that day specifically, but I support general strikes.
I do too. When's the 14th? Is that the, what day is that? Or the 17th? It's a Friday. Oh, so people get a long people get a long vacation.
Yeah, I guess that must be it.
4-day week. What? Oh, we're not.
Way to have solidarity, Sam.
You know
a
what?
mass strike,
We're going to go on strike that week
possibility,
after. We're going to go strike that
February
week after.
17th.
We'll
General
be
strike.
in the
We're on strike
booth
the
shouting everyone
next week,
on.
We're going to strike for the entire week after that because that's the
You're gonna watch your
school
kids.
break. Yes. I want to attend some local protests. What's the best way to know about them in advance? Facebook? Should I just follow separate causes these events unfold? I'm looking for a clearinghouse that provides that. We're putting together a list, but we keep getting more stuff. If you know of stuff, email us and just put it in the subject line. I know in New York there's like some numbers you can text, but I can't recall the number off the top of my head. I don't want to put anybody. The Mandarin candidate. Trump backed off repealing gay protections. I guess we should thank Peter Thiel.
Well, you could thank me. You could beg. You could do whatever you want. But one day I'm going to be in a bunker drinking your children's blood, and you're going to be dead. So until then, I hope you enjoy PayPal. Bye.
I wish Alex Jones would start a series of watching and commenting in past episodes of The Apprentice. Imagine how that would go. Glennie, are you guys surprised that some of your own acolytes believe in the secular liberal values that you generally promote, and that they may reasonably observe that Islam, as widely adhered to, does not align particularly well with those values?
Blow me.
I have no problem.
We've already covered this.
I have
a
no
million
problem.
times.
I have no problem with people criticizing Islam that is practiced, I don't know, widely adhered to, but practiced in that way. Yes, that people will critique Islam in that way. I have no problem with people critiquing fundamental Judaism in that manner too. I mean, as far as the those Jews in Israel, though, and not just in Israel, but in this country, who are Orthodox, they don't consider me a Jew. They just think that I'm not a Jew.
I certainly consider you a Jew.
So, yes, I have no problem with that. But to talk about a ban, what?
Also, can I just make two really quick points? One is just Chris Lopaco tweeted at us. The general strike is the day before President's Day. So that's number one. And then number two, I think it's also though that we've been steadily making the point too that if you want to understand as an example to something like the growth of Wahhabism in Saudi Arabia, you need to understand the politics of it, and that any argument, even with whatever kind of fundamentalism, if you just reduce it to some sort of like vague supposed understanding of the religion, you're going to miss. We've said it a million times.
We have funded the growth of this. In Israel, funded the growth of Hamas. Because they thought it was going to be politically. I mean, they were wrong.
But they thought it would undermine the PLO, which actually in some ways sort of did.
I guess it did.
Yeah, they were right about that. But there's always about politics, and even like the stuff that Atron talks about, where he actually does take on some of the cultural things. He's demonstrated, actual empirical research.
I critique fundamentalist Christians for also not being in favor of equality for women or gay people. I also critique Russia for allowing for domestic violence and for criminalizing homosexuality. I have no problem with that.
That's why you want a war with Russia, you fucking sell out. Suppose we should just nuke Russia then.
Jay Tingle. Trump announced on Twitter yesterday that he had made his decision. This afternoon, CNN says he's bringing his favorites to D.C. So I'm homesick, and I'm watching snow fall gently outside my window. There's a bird feeder with a lot of traffic today. My feathered friends all look Disneyfied. But just now a hawk swoops in and walks the window and chases one of the poor birds across the roof and out of sight. I can't even say thanks Obama anymore. I'm going to watch Nick Jr. Government skeptic. We've gone through such a terrible libertarian dry spell that I'm half tempted to call in and pretend to be one. Libertarianism just disappears when you have a Republican in president. Spocko. What are the overnights on Apprentice? Did Dag Yates firing beat Schwarzenegger? Nielsen's asking for a friend. Bravo-matic. Wife and I went to the protest in Atlanta airport. Wife had already posted board for Women's March. Now it's looking like we'll just keep poster board and markers on hand all times for the inevitable protests that are forthcoming. We're both in our 50s, and wife has never been to a protest before Trump took office. Seeing many folks like us showing up, which is good. Some fatigue may be an issue at some point. Yeah. I imagine. I've been thinking about that. Like, how is this sustainable? Because there's a sense that people have, like, he's going to implode. This is all going to go away.
No, they're actually banking on, I think, completely exhausting people. And that's why there needs to be infrastructure built around this.
I was contemplating over the weekend how much of Steve Bannon's master plan this is to make everyone exhausted and confused. And
I think that, I mean, it would be surprising to me if anybody contemplated this level of pushback. I mean, I just don't think that one could have anticipated this level of pushback. Now, the question is it sustainable long term? And I think that's going to be a function of how many sort of organizations develop around these protests and how people are engaged. And, you know, the one thing that could come out of this attitudinally could be in Europe, you raise the tuition rates at the university by $250, and you get 20,000 people out in the streets. Maybe over time that becomes a something that happens here. It's interesting when the phenomena that we're seeing now. I think the reason why people are comparing it to Vietnam in some ways. And I haven't seen anybody write about this, but if anybody's aware of like a piece like this, send me an email about it, because I would love to talk to someone who has a better sense of this. But from as far as I can tell, at least as long as I've been conscious, politically conscious, 20, 30 years, there has not been a time where you are seeing protests from the majority of people that represents a majority opinion, right? Like this again, when 250,000 people, maybe 500,000 people protested in New York, a couple 100,000 in D.C. against the war in the early aughts, it was still something like 60-40. We represented the 40% of people who did not, George Bush, his approval rating was above 50%. It's a different feeling. It's not as exhausting, I think, to be protesting, and it can be a little bit more gleeful. I don't know. We'll see. I guess we'll test that thesis. Nelly Girl. The ban excluded only majority Muslim countries that Trump had business interests in, like hotels. Nelly Girl. Is the immigration ban a smokescreen for other things Trump is doing? MSM will talk about the immigration to death because it's easy for them. I think to a certain extent. But, the real issue, look, anything Trump does unilaterally can be undone by another president for the most part. So I'm not as worried about that, short of the Supreme Court. I'm more concerned about what's going to happen legislatively, ultimately. Teacher Lauren, I called both of our senators today, but I'm not sure what to call Fasso's office about. Is there anything that we can move pressure Fasso on? Yes. Tell him to condemn Donald Trump's immigration ban. Tell him to condemn Donald Trump's nomination. Tell him to condemn Betsy DeVos, who apparently CNN is reporting. Well, DeVos hasn't had a vote yet. Is that right? Yeah, I've been IMing you that. Oh, she got confirmed out of committee?
She got out of committee.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah. She advanced to the full Senate today.
Oh, my God. Did all the Democrats voted against her, right?
Checking that.
Didn't CNN just report that she plagiarized something?
Yes, she plagiarized from Obama. She plagiarized a quote from an Obama administration official in a questionnaire.
Wow. It was split along party lines, the vote.
She's horrible.
She's the worst.
Calling from a...
they're all the worst.
208 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Sam. This is Spencer from Boise. Thanks for taking my call.
Thanks for calling, Spencer.
So first of all, I was moving some boxes around the other day, and I found my old copy of Fubar from college. And the more things change, the more they stay the same. So thanks for that.
Oh, you're welcome.
The other thing is, I want to say, of all the impressions in the show, the one that's kind of caught fire around our house is the Mike Flynn's son. Like, now we just yell that to each other across the room. And thank you, Michael, for that.
Hey, that, you know what? Matt and I were talking about this yesterday. That's Stealth, my favorite one.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. I mean, it's like, Dad, give me a beer. I mean, it's so much
Dad, Pizzagate happened again.
So anyway, my question was, and it's kind of nebulous, it's just been kicking around in my head, and you guys are so great. I wanted to get your kind of take on the idea. It seems like Republicans are able to, every major election, put everything on the ballot. There's never anything that is ever settled with them. And I don't know that it's that people forget about what Republican policy actually is, and that's how they're able to just sort of keep on pushing the agenda every 8 or so years until people forget again, like my parents. But at what point is anything ever settled law with these people? I mean, this election was somehow about abortion, even though the last 6 elections were about abortion. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
It's difficult to put a finger on.
Well, I mean, I will say this. It looks like marriage equality, it looks like for the time being, you know, Donald Trump has backed off of the executive orders that federal contractors cannot discriminate against someone for being LGBT. And it's possible that could be just like a settled issue. I mean, look, women being in the workforce, they seem to have more or less given up on that. They're okay with that. Not necessarily equal pay, but their argument now is that there is equal pay, which is, you know, at least some progress. But that is the nature of the conservative mind, right? I mean, they want to return to a bygone era, and that era never is coming back around. So they always have it.
I would read the piece that I talked about it briefly yesterday, just because I obviously didn't have much time, but it's called "Why Republicans Are Impressive" by Michael Kinnicon in Current Affairs. And that's the whole article is about how they keep absolutely, I mean, pretty much everything in play. He actually uses Medicaid as an example of something that's overwhelmingly popular, has no structural problems, and they constantly have gone to the mat for, and now obviously are in a position to decimate. But it's a good piece on how power actually works, and almost how like Democrats overhype themselves through analysis and Republicans just sort of machine gun ahead. It's a good piece.
Well, thank you very much, you guys. Love the show.
Thanks for calling. Calling from a 315 area code. Who's this? 315.
Hello, Sam?
Yes.
Sam, can you hear me?
Yes. Who's this?
Oh, this is Margaret. I'm calling you from Constantia, New York.
Hi, Margaret. Thanks for calling.
Well, listen, the reason why I called, Sam, was because I had an occasion to take a little road trip that was, you know, about 100 miles around up here. Constantia is located right on the shore of Oneida Lake, and Syracuse is on the other side. So there was some road tripping going on, and I was, you know, looking around out the window as we're going along, and I just can't tell you how bad the foreclosure crisis has damaged the buildings and the housing stock up here. Wow. There's just all these closed up buildings that are just falling apart, and it's not just the residential buildings. Also, this thing has very badly destroyed the commercial real estate, because there's all these commercial buildings, everything's closed up, and nothing really, I mean, I don't know if they foreclosed it or if there's a new owner or what, but nothing's being maintained. Everything's just kind of falling apart and is very deteriorated. I assume a lot of places have been now sitting there falling apart for, you know, these many years or whatever, and it looks like some kind of a huge sweeping ray from outer space just came down and kind of zapped huge areas, and I don't know what percent of this housing stock and the buildings up here are affected by it, but it's extraordinarily terrifying.
So was this
really
mostly
wanna-
stuff around the lake, or was it closer to Syracuse, or where?
Well, it was just like this. In order to get to Syracuse from where I am, you got to go around the lake
Right.
on Route 49, and then there's like all these.
And then 81, right? You take
they're
81
all-
down there?
There's all these main roads, and then it's just everything that you can see. I mean, it's just like there's just so many closed up buildings and buildings just sitting there. There's for sale signs everywhere,
Wow.
certainly, but I mean, that's not anything to get too terribly alarmed about, but just the basic abandonment and destruction, it's very frightening. It puts a look on things that is really, really scary. And, the upstate towns are in bad shape, too.
Yeah.
Because now when I go to Rome all the time. When I go to Rome now, I'm going to be approached by 6 or 8 beggars almost immediately. And that's like, there's always been people roaming around bumming change or whatever it is, but it used to be, a few black guys. Well, now, you might see a black guy, but, most of them are young white people out in the streets begging. And that's all this stuff is new. I want to apologize because, I could have called and told you, eyewitness stuff or confirmed information that I know to be true about what's going on. But before the Trump thing happened, it's like, well, everybody's going to be like, well, you're exaggerating. It can't be that bad. And I also thought that, Hillary would somehow pull it out, but I was scared that Trump might win because
There's a lot of Trump support up there.
It is very, very hardcore Trump support, pretty virulent, really. And there's a lot of Trump signs. They won't take down their Trump signs. They're gloating. It's getting really ugly. And actually, the misery is what is causing these people to become so mean. And it's pretty alarming. So, anyways, I wanted to also tell you, you had a caller from Boonville, and I want to tell you that you need to save that contact and stay in contact with that person because that is, you guys are really lucky. You can't go to a place like that unless you're invited. And they won't take your money or anything, and they can also accommodate your family, the majority crew, and Michael and his entourage easily. So I know I don't know the person, but I know what the people have got going on up there. And you guys are really lucky. So I wanted to tell you, also, I am Fifi from the chat room, and I'm Fifi from the Twitter machine. So I sent you on the Twitter machine a video marked Big Left, and it had a bunch of names there, and it was some kind of an event that was in D.C. on the 21st with a bunch of speakers.
All right, well,
and you can kind of...
I'll check it out.
Well, it's important because you could just kind of coast through the Chris Hedges and Jill Stein, but Tim Canova, Kashima Sawant, Chase Iron Eyes, Brian Cloris all gave really, really interesting speeches at that. And it's kind of long, but, you can skip through the beginning of
All
it.
right. I will check it out.
Tim Canova especially.
Appreciate
you
the
should
call.
Listen to it. And okay, bye.
Bye. So.
Entourage going upstate. Dig it.
All right, let's.
Well, that little mention reminded me of my grandma. Going good until just throw a little.
Well, I mean, I
in.
think she. I mean, I think if she's just making an observation that the nature of poverty maybe in that area has changed in terms of. I don't know.
Wasn't phrased elegantly at all.
No,
not at all. I had the same wince, but I get the point.
Well, I love my grandma, but
no,
then
I
sometimes
don't.
I'm just like,
I don't like your
what?
grandma. Your grandma's terrible.
All right, let's go. I want to play this clip of Bernie Sanders last night, and this was impressive. There was apparently a big protest by Democrats out in front of the Capitol last night. We don't have too much time, but here was Bernie Sanders calling on Trump to rescind the ban. Here is Bernie Sanders.
Here today in Washington and all over this country, I think more and more people understand that what President Trump did in his ban on foreign visit is un-American, it's unconstitutional, and it's something that is going to make us less safe, not more safe. This country has always been a country that welcomes people into our nation. Of course, we have got to vet people and make sure that they're not going to do us harm. But to tell over 1 billion Muslims in the world that they are not welcome to come into the United States sends a horrible message and something that runs absolutely contrary to American values. I hope very much that President Trump rescinds that ban.
There you go. Bernie Sanders speaking out. Good to hear Sanders. I want to go just play this one clip too of Kristen Welker from NBC asking Sean Spicer whether the detention was necessary of a 5-year-old girl. And remember here, right, the argument we hear to justify a ban or increased profiling, right, is that what's the point of looking at grandma, of white grandma, when we know she's not a terrorist? Well, I don't think he realizes he's stepping all over his own talking points here. Here's Sean Spicer, who went out and got a new suit.
Sean, thanks. Jihadist groups celebrated news of the travel ban over the weekend, indicating that they see it as a recruiting tool. Former CIA and NSA Director Michael Hayden said that he believes this travel ban could make the U.S. less safe. So what do you say to those who argue this travel ban will make the country less safe?
Okay, let's go back and look at what it is. 7 countries that the Obama administration had already identified needed further travel restrictions.
They didn't issue a ban.
I understand that, but what I'm saying is
Pause
that
it
the
for 1
president
second.
recognized.
And those countries did not need further travel restrictions. People who came from a different country that didn't require visas going through those countries needed the same requirement that those 7 countries already had, which is you need to get a visa. But continue.
That the president recognizes that it is his duty and obligation to make sure that we keep this country safe, and that and by instituting a process by which we look at these countries over a 90-day period, and the process by which people can come in and out of this country to ensure the safety of each and every one of us, I think is something that makes a heck of a lot of sense. So I understand, and I think in a lot of cases, and I say this respectfully, that I think some people have not read what exactly the order says and are reading it through misguided media reports. I mean, that's when you actually read the report and understand the nexus of it and how it's working. And again, look at how it worked. When you talk about the 325,000 people, 109 were temporarily inconvenienced for the safety of us all. And they were processed through, Kristen. That's the process. I get the point is that you can go through and nitpick and say, okay, well, this individual is, but that's why we slow it down a little, and to make sure that if they are a 5-year-old, that maybe they're with their parents and they don't pose a threat. But to assume that just because of someone's age or gender or whatever, that they don't pose a threat would be misguided and wrong.
Let me just ask you about the role.
There you go. But I mean, if they're white, if they're Christian, then you can assume that they're okay.
I think there's a part you're not getting about this. They're not white.
Oh, that's pretty nice. Yeah, on one happy note, Governor Christie's approval rating in New Jersey is down to 17%. I don't think I've ever heard. I think Rod
Blagojevich.
Blagojevich is. I don't think his dropped that low, even in prison.
I 100% like Rod Blagojevich as I remember him way more than Chris Christie.
All right, I get time for one more phone call and then 4 IMs. Calling from a 610 area code. Who's this?
Sam.
Yes.
Hi, Sam. Mike from PA. How are you?
Good. What's up, Mike? Got to be fairly quick. Sorry, buddy.
Yeah, I just wanted to give some people. I've noticed a trend in the callers where a lot of people are like, I don't know what to do and I don't know how to organize. I want you to tell you that these major national groups like Planned Parenthood have local statewide, and the ACLU all have statewide organizations. You know, Moms Demand Action. You know, pick an issue that you care about, be it, you know, women's rights, reproductive choice, gay rights, Social Security, and search on Google for a local chapter and then participate in the activism. You know, there's two parts to getting political change. The first part is a campaign where you pick a candidate to win power. Once the campaign's over, it's pointless to talk about Hillary Clinton versus Donald Trump anymore. That's the past. Now we have to be on activism mode where we have to shift to getting political change by pressuring the representatives that are in there. So if you're still talking about Stein, I mean, as much as I love Chapo Greenhouse, it's a waste of time. The time is now to support those groups that will put political pressure on those politicians that can be moved, like your Collins or your Murkowski.
Yeah, I know.
That's all we can do. And so
I agree.
Groups.
For the most part,
They're
I agree with
everywhere.
that. For the most part, I agree with that. But I mean, there are. We got to be able to chew gum and walk at the same time, and there are lessons that
No, I hear you.
that need to come out of this. But yes, there's always an opportunity locally for you, and if it's not within like a 25, 30-mile radius or 40-mile radius, maybe there's a chapter in a city near you, and your town's got nothing. Start one in the town. Start one in the town. They'll help.
I don't care where you are. I don't know. That's the one thing that progressives don't know and Republicans do, is that there are people who are fighting for the causes you believe in within 25 miles, pretty much, unless you live in the middle of North Dakota. That's absolutely true. They're everywhere. People, and the number, exactly. Sorry, Matt. It's mostly just oil derricks
Way to
and
fuck up, Matt.
blizzards. But everywhere you live, I don't care how red it is, there is people that are fighting, in some cases very difficult fights, and a single extra person is going to be enough, and the thing is, if you show up at politicians, like you played that clip of how they talked about that was one conversation that guy had.
Yep.
He was one of the most right-wing people in Congress, and it kind of threw him off, and he was doing that speech because he needed support. He was revealing a lot about his psychology of like, oh shit, some of my voters know what they're talking about. They're not going to be fooled. Now, if you make that an everyday thing, they're going to be scared.
Yep.
So that's how we fight back, is you harass these motherfuckers as much as you can and scare them so they can't go along with Trump.
When you say the word
That's why Nixon
CBO is scoring your repeal, and it's going to cost this country billions of dollars, that scares them because they're like, oh my God, this person is actually read into the third paragraph of a story. But I appreciate the call, Mike.
And it's
Thank you.
$450 billion, I think, by the way.
Ladies
Appreciate
are
the
coming
call.
after
20 million less covered,
America.
450
I look
billion.
around.
What a
More.
cock. Well, come on.
Total
All right,
cock.
bye-bye. Take it easy.
They're making noise.
All right.
All right, guys.
all
Thanks so much. Keep on doing.
Thanks.
Oh.
I didn't mean to
Keep
cut
on
that
that.
quick, but I gotta get okay. Matt, give me a letter.
S.
Suggs. Buttered speeches and emails. Hashtag still standards. Kelly.
Jay.
Joe Perry. Sung to the tune of Streisand's People Who Need People. People who eat people are the hungriest people in the world. Michael.
L.
L. Gotta go way down. Huh?
B.
B. What the
I think this is an intellectual curiosity expedition.
Bullprogs, nickname for Trump that captures his authoritarianism and loss of popular vote. The Fewer. Matt, one more.
B.
B again. Son of a bitch. Give me, BB Teach. Also, did you see the Times article on 20 steps a refugee goes through pre-Trump? But they just want to ask them a few questions. What BS?
Covered it yesterday, and we'll clip that.
Kelly.
A.
Everybody tries to get really clever. Everybody tries to get really clever with
Fucking thought experiment.
A square. Sam, Tribe said it best in Maddow. I think we're going to have Lawrence Tribe tomorrow. It's as if history is being collapsed into a black hole and everything's happening faster. I noted this in November. These men will make Bush Cheney look like pikers. So expect more. Keep tweeting MR and two dope boys. It's all over GOP and Ryan Dems. Agree with Kelly. Bannon et al. Is the chaos operation by design. I think that's true, too. I don't think he's concerned about this fallout. But in that, others in that circle, maybe. Michael.
D.
Denver Dave. The dumb left arguments turned Sam into Hugo Hardcore. And the final IM of the day. Neff. Domestic terrorism report commissioned under Bush, released under Obama in very early months of administration, proved that both right-wing nut jobs and white supremacists were the biggest threats, not Islamicists. Oh, why now? Because facts matter when you're fighting for your country. And nextprotest.com is a clearinghouse for the next protest. On that note, see you tomorrow.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when